The Caretaker is a very unique artist, to say the least. I've been listening to a lot of his music lately, and although the Caretaker moniker isn't going to be making any more music from now, I have been listening to him a lot. The idea of losing your memory is a very interesting concept, and combining this with the old jazz age music from the 20s and 30s and 40s, that intrigued me. So I'm going to be ranking a lot of his albums, their music, and eventually I'll rank all of his albums in total under the Caretaker name. I understand this is obviously a huge break from what I usually do, like Nintendo stuff, and even just media, and even just like games and media in general, and this is definitely a little more serious. But bear with me here. I hope to make this pretty entertaining and to introduce these amazing albums to you. Today I'm going to be ranking one of those famous albums, An Empty Bliss Beyond This World. Number 17 is Pared Back to the Minimal. Now, there isn't really much to say about this one. It repeats over and over again, and while none of the songs in this album are bad, because like I said, this is one of my favorite Caretaker albums, it just loops over and over, as you can hear. So yeah, not really much to say about it. Next up, we have number 16, Bedded Deep in Long-Term Memory. Bedded Deep in Long-Term Memory is another song where it loops quite often. The static sound is used quite often throughout this album specifically, and it sounds like rain, and I think it makes it quite calming. The dreamy feeling that you get from this album is quite nice, though, and the song does a nice representative of that. Number 15 is Mental Caverns Without Sunshine. Now, there are two versions of this song that are used in this album. However, I personally prefer the second version of it. The first is pretty calm, and I didn't mention this yet, but the album is about dementia. And I think the song title and just the song itself really do represent what a mental cavern without sunshine would be. It's repetitive and not much to it, but it does give a nice example of what it would be like to have, along with Everywhere at the End of Time, of course, but that's another album we'll focus on. Next up for number 14, we have the second Mental Caverns Without Sunshine. Now, I personally prefer this one, because I do find it to be a bit more interesting, and it is a little louder too. And you can hear sort of a coughing noise in the background, which makes it sound more human, if that makes sense. Yeah, not really much more to it than that. Number 13 is I Feel As If I Might Be Vanishing. This is the first song on the album that I really call bleak. It's quite sad. Feels like something out of stage 2 out of Everywhere at the End of Time. It is pretty nice, but then the second half of the song is kind of dreamy. Number 12 is Sufficient Moments of Lucidity. This is quite a calm album, and quite a calm track, and I really like the piano here. Not much more to say than that. It's nice. Next up, for number 11, we have Hidden Sea, The Unconsciousness. The nice thing about this song is that it doesn't loop at all. It's actually the longest song in the entire album. The Great Hidden Sea, The Unconsciousness also has a really interesting title. It just feels like a longer version of Sufficient Moments of Lucidity, which makes it nice. Next up, we have the second version of An Empty Bliss Beyond This World. I personally prefer the first version of the song, because it isn't as fast, and I think having it be sped up does take away from some of the emotion it feels. It is a nice track though. Next up for number 9 is a relationship with the sublime. Static and Rain takes a lot of precedence here, but it is pretty nice. I do prefer the second Sublime relationship track. There isn't really much of a relationship between the two of them, but I do like how melancholy it feels. For number 8, we have the first and empty bliss beyond this world. This one feels a little mysterious, and it has more of an interesting aura than the second version of Empty Bliss Beyond This World. And the sample, The Wedding of the Painted Doll, is also interesting too, and I like that version as well. Number 7 is A Story Is Lost. Now, the reason I find this track to be interesting is because it's actually not technically a song in the album, along with Fleeting Dreams. It's a nice one, but it isn't official. Still nice though. Number 6 is Tiny Gradations of Loss. This is another one that repeats very often, but I like how the song kind of cuts off at the end. And it is kind of catchy. Number 5 is The Sublime is Disappointingly Elusive. Just like a relationship with the Sublime, this one is also quite melancholy. And I like that. It really feels like you're losing hope in something, which I kind of like. Number 4 is Fleeting Dreams. It starts off kind of weird, but then becomes a nice jazz song. It reminds me of My Heart Will Stop in Joy from Ever at the End of Time. Again, it's not an official song, but man, it really deserves to be. It's quite a nice one. Number 3 is the song at the start of the album. All You're Going to Want to Do Is Get Back There. This is a beautiful track. The echoing effect accompanied with the very nice, what I can only assume to be a piano. It just sounds very nice, and it's a good song to hum to. It moves a lot, but it's incredibly catchy. It's easy to see why it's such a nice song. And the name is pretty poetic too. Number 2 is Libette's Delay. Now, Libette's Delay is easily one of the most famous Caretaker songs. It's a popular jazz song by Marsh Morgan, Goodnight My Beautiful, but it sounds a lot more, well, tired in this one, but that makes it special. If you're going to show someone the Caretaker, start with this song. It's a really good one. But despite how famous it is, this is still not my favorite song in the album. This is Camaraderie at Arm's Length. Camaraderie at Arm's Length is such a catchy song. It's another Russ Marty song, and I personally believe that his orchestra makes some really great songs and some really great samples, often used by the Caretaker and a lot of the Caretaker community when they're making their own records. I like how it's slowed down just like Libette's Delay. It feels more tired, but still has a lot of energy to it. It's an interesting name for a song too, Camaraderie at Arm's Length. I think what makes Empty Bliss Beyond This World is reminiscing on not just memories, but also the good old days. This clearly paved the way for Ever at the End of Time, and like I said, I will be talking about this on the records. So, thank you for watching, and take care. It's a desert out there. I'll be linking this in the description as well.